Champaign County Agriculture Today with your host, Dennis Riggs.
Hello and welcome to Champaign County Agriculture Today. My name is Dennis Riggs, your host for the next few minutes as we talk about agriculture with a little bit different twist and a little bit different spin than you may be used to. Matter of fact, today is a cool program. I think you're really going to enjoy this. I want you to sit back and enjoy because there's something going on right here in Champaign-Urbana that is unique, that is very basic, that has great ties to the environment and of course to our food chain. I think you're really going to enjoy this program. We've got the two experts to talk with us today. So sit back and relax as we explore the University of Illinois student gardens that are growing here at the university. We have Zachary Grant with us today. Zachary is the farm manager for the gardens. Glad to have you with us, Zach.
Glad to be here.
And we have Bruce Brannon. And Bruce, you're a professor at the University of Illinois Crop Sciences. We're going to start out with a little bit of background. Bruce, we'll start with you. Give us some background of yourself, where you're from, and your work here at the University of Illinois.
Okay, well, since we got 28 minutes. No.
Yeah, why not? Oh,
Yeah.
don't have to go into a lot of detail. That's all right.
Well, I've been a student at the University of Illinois in the 70s and got my graduate degrees here in the Department of Horticulture. And at that time, we used to have apple sales as a way of funding our farm operations. Those have since been discontinued for some real, some good reasons. We were competing with local growers, and the apple market being what it is, that was unfair competition, so we got out of that. So a couple of years ago, I was thinking of ways to try to generate some money for our farming operations, because our farms at the university are a real resource for the state, but they are expensive. You know, and as you know, it's getting harder to find money for these kinds of things. So I was looking for ways. I thought maybe we could sell horticultural products. But I came up with, we can't go in the open market because these horticultural markets are different than corn or soybeans. So I kind of thought about, well, maybe we can sell to the students. And I started talking with some people from dining services. It turns out that, you know, we use a lot of produce at the university. We go through a lot. 9,000 students live in our dorms, so they feed 9,000 students 3 meals a day. We have a huge catering operation that uses a lot of fresh produce. So they've been very receptive. In fact, they've really been the pull to get this going. But so our idea was essentially, let's start a small farm. And our idea was to make money. And you know what? That's not a bad idea. But as I've gotten into started, I'm just hoping that this is successful now. I mean, now our goal is that we want to get as big as we can. We want to produce as much food for the students locally right here on campus as possible. And you know, we're limited by our growing season. We get our maximum production in July and August, and there's no students on campus, or very few. So what we're trying to do is to kind of shift things around so we can produce more when the students are here. But you know, if you go to the grocery store now, there's food labeling. You see that your apples can come as far away as from New Zealand. You can get grapes from Chile. A lot of stuff comes from other countries, Mexico in particular. And there's a cost to that. There's a cost to that transportation. But the biggest thing that we note is that when you grow things locally, they taste so much better than what people are used to getting. So one of the things we're pushing is that this produce that we're growing locally, not only is it good for the environment, it's sustainable, but the food actually tastes really, really good.
So you're telling me that here at the university, we're actually trying to teach sustainability, economics, and practicality all in one lesson here with this program.
Absolutely. In fact, the students who've been most supportive are the group we call the Students for Environmental Concerns, and they've been out volunteering. They've been providing money to get the project going. In fact, they've provided the major funding to get this project started, and that's really where their interest lay, is making our campus more sustainable, and they feel this is part of it, and I think it is. You know, I think we can save a lot of carbon, you might say, by growing things locally. And so far this year, Zach's farm has produced almost 25,000 pounds in our first year of produce that's gone to our dormitory systems.
I was just about to say, in addition to all these other great things that you're talking about, it gives Zach a job. Isn't that a good way to do it?
Yeah.
So, Zach, give us a little bit idea of your background,
okay,
and what you do as far as the U of I farm.
Okay, so I was a grad student here in natural resource environmental science, with a, in horticulture more specifically. I studied, which I'll talk about a little bit later, winter production of cold hardy salad green crops in unheated greenhouse systems called high tunnels. It's kind of a new sort of concept. It's been around for a while, but it's kind of gaining new momentum. And when I went to deposit my thesis, actually, Bruce was the interim head of the department at the time, and I was actually being considered and was thinking about going up to Michigan State University, where they actually have a nice run student farm up there. And Bruce approached me about the possibility of staying on board. He knew a little bit about my background, what my project was while I was in grad school, and approached me about staying on here at U of I, and they wanted to start up a student farm here and get that thing going. So I figured, I think that would have been a much better opportunity to be here at the ground level to get something like this going. And I'm from Illinois, and I'm interested in local regional food economies and the economies of Illinois. So I thought this would be a great idea to get something like this going here at U of I. So.
Well, I just can't get past the idea of using that acronym. You got in at the ground level.
Right.
We're not only talking about the ground that you're growing the crops in, but also the beginning of the program. So congratulations on making that happen. I've got to ask, as you grew up, did your family have a garden, or is there gardening in your background?
It's pretty funny. A lot of people ask me that question, and my aunts and my mom a little bit, but I really kind of got into this sort of smaller scale vegetable fruit production thing kind of on my own. Really, I just when I was an undergraduate I went to Illinois State University for my undergraduate, and I just always lived in houses. We had huge backyards, and I just started growing vegetables in the backyard and just kind of fell in love with it. And then I worked on a few farms, did a little market gardening myself, and I worked in urban forestry for a while, and then I just wanted to get back into more specifically this kind of year-round season extension thing with these unheated high tunnels. I thought this was initially something I thought maybe I wanted to get into extension and work with smaller growers to kind of help them be able to expand their season and expand their bottom lines, because it's selling at farmers markets or some of these more local direct marketing opportunities. I mean, the larger you can expand the season, the more profitable these ventures would be. So, but then when Bruce approached me with this, and just recently, I've come more and focused, and some of my long-term goals I think are more on focusing on how we're gonna, more local type, regional type food. Produce, fruits and vegetable type things.
Well, then you may be just the guy for our people who are watching today that have always wondered, as what is a green thumb, and do you have one?
I absolutely have a green thumb. I mean, I think a green thumb, someone who has a green thumb is just someone who, really wants to be outdoors and working with plants constantly. I mean, as you know, being a farmer, it's something once you get involved in, and it's hard to get away from, regardless of if you're not going to make all sorts of big time monies and be intensely profitable. It's something that you can't once you get into, you can't get away from. So that's when you have a green thumb, is when all those things come into play.
Very good. And I mean, it's obvious that you do have one, so that's fantastic. Well, Bruce, I'm going to ask you, tell us, where is this farm? Is it truly a farm? Is it how many acres? When I think of a farming operation, I think of a family farm out in the country, surrounded by a few township roads. Define the U of I student farm.
Okay, very good. When you grow vegetables on a farm like this size, I'm surprised how much we produce in a small area. And so we're building a new fruit farm. You may be aware we had a farm for many years we called the Pell Farm on the corner of Philo and Windsor Road. And we have sold that to the Illinois Foundation, and that's under their control now. And we have moved our operations west of there. We're still on Windsor Road, and now we're at the end of Lincoln Avenue. So it's Lincoln and Windsor extended. And we have, I think it's about 80 acres there, and our student farm right now comprises only 2 acres. But in those 2 acres, like I said, we pulled off 25,000 pounds of produce this year, and it's an interesting process to go through, because I've never been involved with food production at that level, and I'm surprised at how much, when you go in the grocery store, every piece of produce you see is perfect. Generally not a blemish on it. And so I'm surprised how much produce that we get that just has to be thrown away because it's blemished, or it's got a bug took a bite, or a bird poked in it. And so we've learned a lot about things that probably our grandparents knew many years ago, and would be laughing at me right now.
I told Bruce about that. Did they also tell you that if it's got that one little speck on it,
yeah,
it's okay?
Yeah. It is okay, and that's one of the things you realize how much food we waste because of that, because it's okay, but yet it's not okay. When you put it in a grocery store, people wouldn't want to buy it. So so we're out on Lincoln and Windsor as a corner, and we actually are moving our horticultural fruit operation there. So there's more stuff going on than just our student farm, but we have a lot of room to grow, and really what we can get as big as we can become. The question is, can we match our production with the demand? Because the students are here from the end of August through May, and that's not the best growing conditions here in Central Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Zach's high tunnel research really came into play, because that's really what we need to extend that season and have most of our production occurring in September and October and April and May when the students are here.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is I want to focus on the taste. I go to the grocery store and I buy lettuce or whatever, and Zach started growing this mix that I'd never had, and he grows arugula,
Mm-hmm.
Kale, mizuna, lettuce, and spinach, and then he mixes them all together. And the flavor is just amazing. I mean, there's vibrancy, there's some you just don't get at the grocery store. And so I go to the grocery store and I bought some arugula, and it tastes a little like cardboard to me.
Thanks, Bruce.
Good job, Zach. Yeah, good way to go.
Yeah, but the stuff he grows,
Yeah.
it's really flavorful, and it's got some. So, I think part of the issue that we see, or that I see, and not me, from what I've read, our country faces a real health crisis, and we eat too much of the wrong kinds of foods. And often I think it's because the kinds of foods that are the best for us don't taste very good.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to the grocery store, I buy a tomato, it's not very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
But when I get one that's at a farmer's market or you grow yourself, it's a world of difference.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true for peaches, and even apples are good in the grocery store, but they're fantastic when they come off of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think part of the issue that we face as a country is trying to figure out how to have food that tastes good, that's good for you. Because a lot of food that tastes good is manufactured and may not be the best for you. And so I think hopefully what this farm will do is turn on the students to the fact that, hey, this is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have broccoli, and who likes broccoli, but if it actually tastes good, and just some of the things, again, that Zach's growing several different varieties of basil, and I was surprised to see how the range of taste you get. So it's really been an education for me.
Well, Zach, we keep talking about the students. Now, is that just you? Are you the Lone Ranger out there? You got your hoe and a line, and you're putting the seeds in. What type of help do you have, or tell me about how the farm operates on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I'm out there by myself a lot, but no, we actually, well, we're really fortunate here at the university to be able to have a large student base, and this year we've been creating a lot of buzz, and there's a lot of students who have interest in this. So we've been trying to get as much volunteer help as possible, with the idea that this farm will be kind of an experiential living laboratory for students. So they can come out to the farm, get an idea of what goes into growing food, like tomatoes, salad greens, sweet corn, peppers, things like that, and they can come out, help for a few hours, help me. And help themselves, because really the food that they're growing and helping me harvest is going right back to them in the dorms. And some of the students who don't live in the dorms who come out, they come out, help me for a couple hours. In some weeks we've picked up, upward of 5,000 to 6,000 pounds of produce in 1 week.
Wow.
So they're out there helping us do it, and sometimes the students who don't live in the dorms, I let them take produce home. So 1 week I remember I had some students out there, and they came and they helped me for like 3 hours, and maybe we picked like 1,100 or 1,200 pounds of produce, and we had so much left over that we culled out in seconds and things like that. They probably took home like $80 to $90 worth of produce, and just for like 3 hours of help. So we're really fortunate here to have this large student base, and so we're trying to mobilize the students to get out there and kind of. And, I'm kind of the facilitator, manager, coordinator of the project, but we really hope to see this become a student-run operation, that we have the students themselves out there, planting, harvesting, doing some of the day-to-day activities and really becoming involved in that themselves. So.
Well, I can see that a big challenge to this operation is many things in agriculture, whether it's production agriculture or, in your case, very much garden variety, let's say, is very timely. Is the soil too wet, or we have 2 hours before the next rain comes, or the crop has matured, it's going to be ready tomorrow. Any creative ways of communicating? How do you get your workforce mobilized in short periods of time sometimes. I'm thinking Twitter. I just come
Right.
my mind to Twitter everybody and say, hey,
Well,
the green beans are ready.
Okay. Yeah, well, this is the first year, and we're still kind of working out some of the kinks with all of this. But we have kind of a volunteer coordinator who's a student herself, and she's kind of helped us, kind of get the word out to students. We kind of developed a listserv and list of students who are interested in the farm. She helps us get the word out to know when we're going to be out there during the week, and then she'll get back with me and say, okay, you might have 3 or 4 people coming out this day, and things like that. But we already, just in this first year, we've had like a good kind of solid core group of volunteers who come out pretty consistently and are really interested in helping out with the farm. So,
all right.
So yeah, I mean, we're continuing to work on some of those creative ideas to get the students involved, and because, I mean, like Bruce has been saying from the beginning of the project, and I'm really starting to realize now that, if it isn't for the students and their interest in the project, something like this probably wouldn't work, because I can't be out there by myself managing 3 to 4 acres of really intensive vegetable production, excuse me, and expect to be able to do that all on my own. So we need help, and we're fortunate enough. This is kind of like a startup business in itself. And most small scale growers who are dealing with kind of a premium wholesale market, i.e., working with dining services, probably wouldn't be able to be successful at something this right away unless they're really good, or they had a lot of the startup capital or land or things like that in place. So we're fortunate to be able to have that already, some of those things, some of the capital, the land, and the students to help out with the labor. So with that, we're hoping after another year that we'll be able to be kind of an economically self-sustaining venture, and then some of the extension, research, experiential learning opportunities will come online after that.
The fine-tuning, you might say.
The fine-tuning, right.
Well, a couple of questions come to mind. I think our viewers might be wondering right now. First of all, approximately how many students during the growing season, 1 year, year to year, do you have out there? How many different students touch foot on the soil?
Well,
approximately.
I mean, I would say it varies on any given harvest day, because most of the labor that we've used to help had the students be involved with this year has been with harvesting and bringing all this stuff. So I would say we probably were averaging, excluding me, maybe like 3 to 5 students every day that were out there harvesting, including me. So we have, anywhere between 5 and 6 people out there harvesting 1.5 acres to 2 acres of intensive vegetable production. I mean, some days, like the very first day that we had students out there was when we transplanted 1,100 tomato transplants and 1,500 bell pepper transplants. And that day we had like 17 students come out, and that was actually during finals week. So it was really impressive to see the interest in some of these students and some of the student groups. They were studying from finals, and they were so interested in making this farm a success that they even came out in between their finals and helped me transplant all of these vegetables. And
maybe you're creating a new way to reduce stress.
Right, yeah.
There you go.
No, actually, there was one student who came out there, and he said something very similar to that.
Yep.
He was studying for finals, and he came out, and it was a good break for him to come out and help prep the beds to get some of these tomatoes transplanted. And so things like that have been really encouraging, and I think that the sky's only the limit with that. I think once things get rolling with this, and it's kind of the local regional farmers market thing has kind of been a new trend in kind of the smaller, more specialized agriculture thing. But I'm thinking it's starting to become more of a mainstream sort of necessity in a way. I just read saw a video just the other day. Tom Vilsack, our Secretary of Agriculture, they just launched this new program called Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food. And they're really making this push to try to get people involved as much as possible in some more regional things. So.
Okay, so all these students that are out there, now my next question that works off of that, how many of them are agriculture-based students, and how many are just non-agriculture whatsoever?
Okay, that's a great question. Actually, I've had a lot of engineers out there, actually. A lot of people from the engineering department, integrative biology. We do have some Hort students. Like one of the first interns that we had during the summer, because during the summer there's not as many students, so we're not getting as many volunteers, so we're doing a little part-time paid help. One of those students was in the Hort program, so it's varied, and that's kind of what we want. I think we want this not just to be a crop sciences Hort thing. We want it to be a university-wide thing, because the food is going to the dining halls, and those 9,000 students represent the whole gamut of students here at the university. So
okay, the question that comes up, when your produce makes it to the dining halls, is it completely replace produce from somewhere else? Is it labeled? Here's from the U of I student farm, and here's from question mark. Is there any labeling done on the consumer level?
Well, those are some of the things that we're working on. Don Aubrey, who is the administrator that we're most directly involved with, I am not 100% sure at this moment, like exactly how they're working that. We're still working out some of the kinks, but I think the plan for next year actually is to have all of our produce go to the new Eikenberry Commons dorm, which is going to be one of the larger dorms in the United States, from my understanding, if not the biggest. So we're going to try. I mean, I think right now it's kind of going to a bunch of different dorms, and I think they are doing some labeling and letting people know that this is specifically from the student farm. But I think next year, for the next growing season, there's going to be a more specific push for labeling and letting the students know that this is exactly where the food's coming from, and where they could even go to help participate in this. So yeah.
Possible marketing avenues
Right.
there too.
Absolutely.
Well, Bruce, what about, we've talked about the students and about the involvement of them both on the working basis and the consumption. What about the educators? What about other professors or other trades? You talk about the economics of this whole idea. What type of reaction are you getting on campus to this concept?
I would say the reaction on campus has really been pretty impressive. To a lot of our faculty, they think, well, this is old stuff. I mean, we used to do this, 40 years ago we had to grow our own food. And so I think there's some of that, but most people have been surprised at how much legs this has gotten. We've gotten a lot of publicity, articles in the newspapers. Alumni Magazine just had an article about it, so it really seems to be resonating with people. And I think the reason it resonates is the students are so involved. And as Zach mentioned, we had 2 student interns working all summer long, and they kind of got everything growing and weeded and hoed and so on. And then when we harvest, we bring in volunteers. And that's been really interesting to see the students come out, like you said, just without any, they're not gaining anything other than they like being outdoors and they like the opportunity to feel like they're contributing to the campus. And so, I keep saying to people, we have 40,000 students here. If we get just 1% to come out and volunteer, we're going to have more hands we know what to do with. So we think we can really grow the farm, and our goal is, we kind of envision a 3-year ramp that we want to be completely self-supporting. In other words, producing enough produce by the 3rd year that we can pay for the farm manager, Zach, some interns, and then any cost we have. If we have to go out and buy some more fruit trees or whatever, we want to be able to be a business, in a sense, within the university. And I think we can do that. And in fact, this first year has gone even better than I had hoped. And so if we need 1 more year of funding in year 2, and then I think we'll be ready to just run our own. And who knows where we can go? Maybe someday we'll be having, like you've heard of Newman's Own stuff. Maybe we can have the U of I's own line of
what do they call that? A branded line or something like that?
But,
well, back in older days, I know you're too young, and of course I am too, but the word victory garden, you've heard the term victory garden.
Absolutely.
Is there any correlation between that concept and what they're doing here, Bruce?
Absolutely. The Victory Garden program was during World War II, and the idea was that people could grow their own produce so that the farmers' produce could go to support the troops, the war effort. And in a sense, that's kind of what we're doing. We're going back to a more locally based agriculture. And the downside of that is, growing your own food is hard work. It takes a lot of hours. But the upside is, it tastes a lot better. It's here locally. You know what you're getting. And those things, I think, can at least, how we work that out is going to be important in the future, because we need jobs for people. And the question can be, could a farmer take 5 or 7 or 10 acres of their land and rent it out to somebody who could make enough to make a living and to contribute to the community?
Mm-hmm.
Because really, we've all gotten used to going to the grocery store and we buy $150 a week of produce or food, and that's all we do. But maybe we need to think about getting some locally grown food in that mix, and how does that system work so that it's convenient to us and yet provides us with the kinds of healthful, nutritious foods that we can grow locally. And we can't grow stuff year round, but with these season extension things that Zach is doing, we can grow things quite a bit of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's kind of a laboratory. We're going back to the future in a sense, but we're also trying to advance some things, and I think how it works out will be interesting, because to me, it's an open question whether, again, we could get a significant number of people in communities doing this and actually, bringing jobs in a sense back to, when we buy produce from California, our money's not going here. It's going back to California. So can we keep some jobs or create some jobs here?
Well, the interesting concept there is whether the U of I is a community, or the town of Savoy is a community, or Foosland, or whatever,
Right.
that could all be put together. We haven't asked the burning question that's in my back of my head right now. Tell me the crops. We've got just a couple minutes left. Zach,
Okay.
run down some of the crops that you're experimenting with right now.
Well, this year we've been, we have an assortment of different types of baby salad greens that we've been growing. So that's, like the kales, arugulas, and lettuce and things like that. But we've been growing a lot of the warm season crops too, like the tomatoes, sweet corn, bell peppers, all the cucurbits, like your summer squash, zucchini, cucumbers, just to name a few. Herbs.
We have a little squash if you want some.
You got a few how about the zucchini?
Right.
The joke in the office is how many zucchini do you want, right?
Oh yeah. No, we've been able to bring them a lot of. We have a pie chart of. We brought them a lot of zucchini.
They kind of said no more zucchini.
That's enough.
So those are a few of the things. But for next year and beyond, I think we're going to really try to diversify it as much as possible and work with some of their production chefs to kind of cater, what we're bringing to them seasonally and what's available, and so they can work with that a little better and have more of a diversity year round. So,
Are most of the things you're doing now, are they annuals, or are you working with any perennials?
Well, I mean, some of the herbs that we work with potentially could be some perennials, and we could get rhubarb and things like that into the mix. But most vegetable crops that people are used to are annual. So.
And we do intend to get more fruit in the mix too.
Right.
So apples, maybe peaches, blueberries, things like that down the road would be a big part of that.
The whole idea, this whole concept is just exciting. This is a lot of fun. What do you think, as a young guy, Zach, do you think that there's a future of a possible business model here that could be modeled after what you're doing here at the U of I,
Right.
to actually go out for a young graduate of the university and they go back to their farming operation in just a few seconds we've got left here? Is this a sustainable business model?
Well, absolutely it is. I think, especially in a state like Illinois where we have such great productive soils, there's 27 to 30 million arable acres of land here. And, I think if we just took just a little bit of that, not that much, a 0.5%, which would be a lot of acres. I think we could, turn this into a very sustainable business model and grow some of our food locally for our own regional communities and still have the agriculture that we're used to, and then additionally bring in some of this more diversified type system. So I definitely think there's room to play here and elsewhere, absolutely.
Any new crops out there that we haven't heard of? Are you experimenting with that?
No, just a lot of like the salad green things, some of the more functional leafy crops that
Zach's research, he looked at growing these salad crops in these high tunnels, and he estimated he could gross $5 to $15 per square foot.
Wow. Yeah.
In there. So you do the math, you could make a living off that.
I wish we had more time to do more math, but we're running short on time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming today. This is a
Pleasure.
great
My
program.
pleasure.
Bruce, congratulations to you for your forward thinking here. And Zach, keep up the good work out there.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for listening, folks. We hope you learn about agriculture, maybe from a different perspective here at the University of Illinois, and what maybe could happen in your own backyard. Hope you'll tune in again next time when we have a chance to tell you what's going on in Champaign County agriculture today. I'm Dennis Riggs.
Champaign County Agriculture Today is brought to you by Champaign County Farm Bureau.